Do you know exactly what you want your story to feel like, but no idea what actually happens? You might be suffering from all vibes, no plot syndrome. After watching this video, you will know exactly how to turn those vague vibes and your amazing aesthetic into a plot that you can actually start working on. Here's what someone said about the workbook that gives you the exact same process that I'm giving you in this video. I went from having a vague idea of what I wanted for my story to writing countless paragraphs of lore. I recommend this to anyone struggling to organize or get inspiration. You won't regret it. And yeah, you can do all this without the workbook, but it's just going to give you all the steps to doing this thing. So, you can look them up and there's space for writing all your stuff. So, you can find it in my Etsy shop, Write a Lifestyle. I don't know why I almost forgot the name. There's a link to it in the description. And if you buy 2 more things at once, you automatically get 20% off. Yay! And by the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Katri, I'm your new writing bestie, and this is Protagonist Crafts, the place for people who are kind of obsessed with that whole writing thing. Now, you're going to need Pinterest for the beginning of this process, but if you want to use something else, that's fine. But it's just the best thing for our purposes here, because it's an easy way to find images and related images, and then you can save them there without needing to download them or cut and paste them anywhere else. So yeah, so here's step 1. Write a list of your vibes and everything you can think of that is related to them, because we're going to need this list in the next step. So don't leave anything out and don't hesitate to be specific. And step 2, go on Pinterest and start a new board for this thing, and then start going through your list of aesthetics and start writing them. I don't know why you're writing them by hand, typing them in the Pinterest search bar. Putting the word aesthetic or vibes can help you come up with better images rather than like graphics for blog posts or infographics. So try it out. Whenever you find something that matches what you're looking for, save it to your board. And don't be too critical at this point. We will get rid of the dots later. I'm sorry the lighting is going to be all over the place in this video. It's one of those days. So for example, if I search for beekeeper, I'd get some photos, but also get these pins for blog posts. So I try aesthetic instead. So yeah, some pictures are very literal here, like here's a beekeeper, but then some are more vibey. And you can find more images when you scroll down, but you're also going to find related searches. So if they seem good, just go and check out what's in there. And if you can't quite find what you're looking for, you can find a picture that's kind of like it and then click it. And then when you scroll down, Pinterest is going to deliver you images that are related to it and things that it's going to think that are related. So yeah, go through your whole list that you came up in step 1. And then if you have something that's very specific, like Oxford in the rain in November, you might want to cut it up to smaller search terms. So perhaps Oxford in the rain. How does it look different in November than in May? I don't know. I haven't been to Oxford in a very long time, and that is a very long story that I'm never going to tell you. So once you've gone through your whole list, go and look at your board and then click more ideas and see what Pinterest thinks that you might also like. And if there's anything there that fits your story's vibes, add that to your list as well before we move on to the next step. Step 3, cut down anything that doesn't fit. So look at your images there. Do they look like they would go in the same story? And ideally, you would also know your genre at this point. So if you were writing fantasy and you have a picture of a spaceship in there, does it actually fit? Or perhaps you're writing romance and you've got all these creepy pictures of the woods in there. And yeah, maybe your story takes place in a forest, but this looks more like a crime scene. It might not fit your story. So just go through them and then delete anything that doesn't quite fit with everything else. Maybe pictures that are just too similar, and just anything that makes you feel like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it anymore. It's not my vibe anymore. So yeah, do the culling of the images. Now, after you're happy with your board, step 4 is a picture is worth 1,000 words. Now, this is one of the most labor-intensive steps of this whole process, but I'd like to think it's also the most fun one. So start going through all the pictures one by one. What do you see there? What's in the picture? What is not in the picture? What is happening there? What might happen? Who is that? Who does that belong to? So let's say I had this picture, here. There's a little house there. There are flowers and some bees. So what's going on there? Whose house is that? who lives there. Are they the beekeeper? Is the beekeeper someone else? Yes, I'm going I'm going for the beekeeper theme here. I don't know why, but I'm doing anyway. Is there some significance to the honey that the bees make? Who's buying it from them? Where do the bees go? You know, when they leave their little bee house, whatever it is called. So think of those things, and some things that are obvious and some things that are not. Obviously, you will need to speculate here. Coming up with things that aren't true, that you can't see, is sort of part and parcel with this whole writing thing. So making shit up is your job, so do it. So yeah, do that with all your pictures. Write down what's in there, what could be there. Ask yourself, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Who needs hands anyway? So yeah, go through every image in your board. Write what you can see there. Write what you could see there. Speculate. Ask yourself questions and then answer them. And then move on to the next picture when you can't find more from any given picture. And you're going to come up with all kinds of material here. Is it good material? Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be good material as long as it's material. So use your imagination. I'm sure you have one, or at least some. If you don't have any, I can borrow you some. I don't know how to send it to you, but you know, like this maybe. You're welcome, I hope. And one thing to remember here is don't be too critical, or actually don't be critical at all, because when you're trying to be creative and critical at the same time, it's kind of like trying to brake and accelerate at the same time. So there are separate parts of the process of any novel writing process, not just this one. So yeah, remember that. So finally, when you're done with that, step 5 is let's categorize everything. And if you don't have the workbook, just give yourself an empty page on a Word document or in your amazing notebook that you haven't been using until now. I'm so honored that you decided to use your best notebook for this process. So these 3 categories are characters, settings, that is time and place, and plot events. Think of plot events as anything that happens during your story. So if there are events that are part of like your character's backstory, then put them in the character buckets. Let them crawl all over each other in a bucket like crabs, because that's what we writers do to characters anyway. The things in your character bucket also don't have to be like full characters. It could be jobs, personality traits, something about their appearance, whatever, as long as it's related to the characters. And it's fine if there's some overlap, because shock horror, you can't separate plot from character, but ultimately it doesn't matter, because you're not doing this thing for me or to get a good grade, you're doing it for yourself. And you can't do it incorrectly as long as it works for you. But actually, since you're doing it, I'm going to give you an A+, because, you know, you're awesome. High five. If you feel like you need more than 3 categories, like maybe you're writing fantasy and you need a whole category for something like your magic system, then, you know, go ahead and do that. Again, this needs to work for you, not for me. And then step 6 is what is actually usable. So go through all your categories and see what's going to fit in the same story, what you actually want to write, what actually seems usable. Just go through everything and take out anything that you feel like you don't actually want to or need to write in the same story. If you're struggling to let some ideas go, maybe instead of deleting them, you copy and paste them to a different document, but try to stay focused on this one specific story. I know that when we have a lot of ideas, it can be tempting to just smash them all together into this one fantastic, amazing story. But unfortunately, that's going to make your story unamazing, so don't do that. And I know, like, when you get all these great ideas and you know that writing a novel, it takes a long time. So you might be like, well, if I can't use this idea now, all these amazing ideas now, when will I be able to use them? But just be ruthless. Just leave out anything that doesn't fit this particular story that you're going to write now. Obviously, we could all die tomorrow, but hopefully you'll be able to write another novel at some point and you can use those ideas then. So yeah, think of what actually goes together, because, you know, pizza is amazing and so is chocolate cake. But if you're going to put chocolate frosting on your margarita, then that is just Ew, you big weirdo. And yeah, surprising combinations of different elements can be and is a good thing. But again, think of, can you actually make them work and do they actually make sense within the same story? But here you can also kind of start putting things together, like things that go together. Kind of like when you start doing a jigsaw puzzle and then you're like, well, these pieces are similar and so are these. Because eventually you will have to come up with whole characters. So perhaps it looks like, well, you've got this beekeeper here and you've got this duchess here. Let's just put some of these things here and some of these things here. So, you know, you could maybe underline them with the same color or something. And you can also start thinking about who is your protagonist going to be, because that is going to be very important. And then step 7, look at all the plots events you have in the plots event category and put them in chronological order. That's it. Don't think about anything else. Just put them in the right order, chronologically speaking. So what happens first, what happens next, and then what next. Don't think of anything else. Just do it. And then in step 8, you need to structure your story. And then the first step of doing this is to decide where your story actually begins and where it ends. So you might have all these events that don't actually go in the story proper. So where does it actually start? Where does it end? Figure it out first. And you should always start your story as late as you can and end it as soon as you can. So think of like a roller coaster. So it doesn't begin with like 5 minutes of just coasting, and it doesn't end with like just going like this indefinitely. So things already need to be happening in the beginning of the story. When your readers start reading your story, they need to be like, oh yeah, okay, yes, I can see things are happening or just about to happen. Here we go. Ah! So keep that in mind. And also you should end your story when you've tied all the loose ends and you've given us like a little glimpse of what's going to happen after the story. But preferably you should end it like leave us wanting just one more page. So don't linger. Make the cuts and be ruthless. It's funny how I keep advocating for ruthlessness, because in real life, like not counting writing, I am just about the least ruthless person in the world. I am a marshmallow. I am a marshmallow covered in cat hair and glitter. But with writing, whether you're a marshmallow or not, you do need to be ruthless. But what else is story structure? You need a beginning, a middle, and an end, because this thing happens, then this other thing happens, and it all leads to this. That is the bare minimum of structure that you should understand. To get a little more specific, you need a protagonist who is faced with a life-altering problem and who first tries to solve that problem the wrong way because of their flaws, but because they eventually change as a person because of all the events in your story. Your story is a change-making machine that uses problems to change your character. They're finally able to solve that problem the right way. They're going to have to make a lot of mistakes, and they need flaws. And they don't necessarily need to like change as a person. They could find some new perspective, they could learn new skills or something, but it needs to be lacking in the beginning, and then because of the wonderful events of the story, they change as a person. Although sometimes, you know, the protagonist gets succumbed by the problem, but usually they get to the other side somehow, even if the problem gets solved, and it usually should get solved in a very different way that seemed like the actual solution in the beginning. If you'd like more help with this and more help with turning your character's flaws into a story, you can get 10% off with the code YouTubeFriend from my genius plotting system. Because story structure is essentially your protagonist's journey, whether that is a literal journey or a metaphorical journey. Yes, you are going to need a protagonist. So who is that? What are they like? So put your hand in the character bucket, mind the crabs, and then pull out the main character who all this happens to and for. By now you might be like, okay, I understand story structure since you explained it so well, and since I read the blog post that you linked in the description, but I still have all these gaps in my story. What to do? Well, yes, your job right now is to fill in all those blankety blanks. And here, all you need to do is remember your best friend, not me, but cause and effect. What led to this event? What's going to come out of it? Knowing this character, how are they going to react to what happens? The thing with cause and effect and the internal logic of your story is that you are responsible for it. And like winning the lottery could be the worst thing that can happen to a person in your story, and you could make it make sense because, again, you are the creator and the janitor of your story. So how does it work? Make it work. So whatever happens in the story, you'll need to be able to point out something that happens before then or something that is revealed later and be like, here, it was inevitable. You should have known that this was going to happen. So there you have it. You have turned your vibes into a plot. Personally, I would dedicate some more time to fleshing out my characters and maybe go more into detail of my story. I would write myself a scene list to make sure that I have enough scenes for a full novel, you know, if that was what I was writing. So you can start working on first draft straight away, or you can also use your preferred method of outlining. Do you need to have absolutely everything planned before you can begin? Can you have no blanks at all? Sometimes our stories don't really reveal their secrets until we start writing, so give yourself some chance that you're going to find the answers when you start writing, because I don't want you to be stuck here forever thinking like, oh, I need to solve this plot issue. I can't move on before this blank is filled. Don't do that. It's fine. You're probably able to do it later. So plan enough so that you feel supported by your outline, whatever it is like, and have a clear idea of your story and what you want to say to it and what is the transformation that your protagonist goes through. Even if you don't know every single plot event and every single character in your story, that is enough. Whatever a good enough outline means varies from writer to writer and from novel to novel. So work with what actually works for you. That's the most important thing. So again, if you'd like the From Vibes to Plot workbook, you can find the link in the description, as well as other useful links to my blog and stuff that, you know, that's going to help you do this. I'd love it if you can leave me a comment telling me what your story's vibes are and let me know if you'd like me to talk more about plotting. Now get off your phone and start writing.